I'm Dr. Brian Sizdek. I'm the product manager at Stoelting. We're a publisher of psychological assessments and clinical psychologist. I'm here today to go over the administration of the Stroop color and word test. The Stroop color and word test is an efficient assessment of executive functions. You'll want to have read the entire manual and be trained in the administration and be qualified in the ethical and appropriate administration of the test. We do have within the manual, and you may be using this as part of your research or clinical protocol, a brief administration guide. As this says, this is not comprehensive, but it outlines the steps in administering the test. So this is a good reference. You can read this. I'll be following this through the instructional video. The materials that you'll need to administer the test, you'll need 2 record forms. One record form is going to be for you, one is going to be for the client or patient. For this example, I'm going to be using the English administration, but the same procedures should be very similar whether using this or another language. You'll also want to have a timer with second specificity, so it will be down to 45, down to the second level. And you'll want to have the timer set for 45 seconds. You'll also want a pencil and clipboard. Before testing, you want to arrange your space where you'll be having the testing. You want a quiet space with 2 chairs for yourself and the patient. You want to make sure that that patient has met inclusion criteria, which is defined within the manual and defined within your research protocol. And then ensure that the words and color names can be seen and read. So there's, as we'll see soon, there's going to be 3 different words that will need to be read in English or any language. That is red, green, and blue. So the person will need to be able to read those and also be able to discern those colors. If there's any question at all of the patient's ability to complete those tasks, say the words or discern the colors, then test them beforehand. There could be language disorder or color blindness. Those are common criteria that would make this an inappropriate test for them, for that person. So administration, you can sit down with the client either at a 90-degree angle to you on a square table, sitting in their seat, you sitting in yours, or across the table from each other. You'll want to have ready 1 record form for them, 1 record form for yourself. You want to be using a clipboard so you can write on it, number 1, but also so that you can be recording things. Sometimes when a person sees another person recording, that can bring up some feelings of anxiety, and that can just make it more difficult for them. So the information that you'll need to collect, you'll either have collected it or it will have been collected in your research protocol, is the person's identifying information, whether you're using a name or a participant ID number. That will need to be noted on the record form or whatever record keeping system you're using. And you'll also need an age to the year and the education level, which would be the highest grade level completed. That's what's needed to score the Stroop. You'll either need to collect it now or have collected it previously. When you sit down with the person, you're going to be first explaining what you'll be doing. This is assuming you've already explained what they're doing in that room with you, whether it's a clinical assessment or whether it's for research. You'll have introduced that. You'll have obtained the appropriate ethical consent to administer the test. And you'll just first begin by introducing the test. So you're going to, following the administration guidelines, turn to the word condition. So the test has 3 parts. There's a word condition, a color condition, and a color word condition. Okay. And as I'm explaining how you'll administer the test, this will also cover what each of those sections are about. So you turn to the word condition, set this down in front of the patient, and say, this is a test of how fast you can read the words on this page. After I say begin, you are to read down the columns, and here you can point and show them down the columns, starting with the first one until you complete it. So they're reading down, and you will just take your finger and show them reading down. And then continue without stopping down the remaining columns in order. So then you'll show them going down the next column, going down the next column. If you finish all the columns before I say stop, then return to the first column and begin again. So here you can show if you finish all the columns before I say stop, return to the first column and begin again. Remember, do not stop reading until I tell you to stop, and read out loud as quickly as you can. If you make a mistake, I will say no to you. Correct your error and continue without stopping. Are there any questions? Likely the person won't have questions. If there are, you can try to answer those within a reasonable degree of certainty. But basically, if it seems like they're asking more questions, stalling, high anxiety, a good phrase you can always use is, I just want you to try your best on this and just try to begin testing. So you can repeat those instructions if necessary. You can paraphrase if someone has a question about something. Like for example, in English, we call this down the river in school sometimes, so the person might know that by going column by column. When the person's ready, then you're ready to begin the test, and you'll be placing this in front of them. You'll turn to that same page on your clipboard, and you'll be following along. And so as you're following, you have three main jobs here. Number one, you're going to be tracking, as the person reads, you're going to be tracking that they're reading the word correctly. As you said in the instructions, if they say a word incorrectly, you say no. They have to correct themselves, and then they'll continue. So that's job number one, making sure they're reading correctly. Number two, you'll need to be keeping track of the time. So you'll need to start the time when you begin, and then if the beeper goes off, you'll need to track that they've stopped right when the timer goes off. And number three job, you're going to need to keep track of the final word they say and how many times they've gone through the page. So you're going to basically, with the record form in front of the person and the record form in another copy in front of you, say ready, begin. Start your timer and do your three jobs, and just following along. So on this first one, let's just assume the person did not say anything wrong. They've gone through all the words, and let's say they've gone through the first two columns and they get about right here. The timer stops, beep, 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 beep. So you say stop, okay? Even if they keep going, you note where that last word was when the timer went off. I want you to just draw a line under that word, okay? So I just drew a line, and in a circle next to that, you're just going to write the number of times they've gone through the page. So remember, they could have gone through the entire page and then start over. That would be one time going through the page. We're going to assume this person did not go through the entire page, so they just went down one column. The second column stopped here, so I'm going to write a 0 in that circle. That means they've not gone through the page at all. They've only gone through this number of words. Okay. Basically, the only two numbers you'd be writing is a 0 or 1. A person will not go through two times, likely. So 0 or 1. Now you're going to need to go to the next condition, which is the color condition. that's on the next page. On this page, it's just the colors. Those same words, blue, red, and green, are just presented as colors. So you're just going to be turning the patient's record form over. Now, let me just point something out here. So you're using two record forms here. This one that the patient's reading is not going to get marked on at all. So this is just like an extra form that you're using. You can reuse this one. The only one that gets written on is the one that you are writing on. That will be, this is the patient's record form. So even though this one's in front of them, this is just a stimulus. This is the record form that goes with that patient. So you've got the color form on your clipboard, and it's basically the same thing as what you did with the words, except now it's going to be colors. So I'm just reading the bolded directions on the scoring administration guide. And I'll say, this is a test of how fast you can name the colors on this page. You will complete this page just as you did the previous one, the previous page, starting with this first column. So we're just showing them again, they're reading down the columns. Remember to name the colors out loud as quickly as you can. Okay? And that's it. You're going to get your timer ready, you're going to get them ready, and again, your three jobs, you're just following to make sure they read the word correctly, the color correctly. If not, then you just say no and correct them to read it correctly. You're going to be keeping track of the time, and you're going to keep track of how many words, how many colors they get. Okay, so I'll say ready, begin, start the timer. I'm keeping track of what colors they say. Now let's say right off the bat, the first one is read incorrectly, which is a blue. This is unlikely to happen, but let's say they just read it as a red. I'll just say no. They need to correct that and say blue, and then continue going red, green, etc. Okay. Let's say now, in this example, let's say the person gets through all the columns, they get through the whole page. Then they start back again at this first column. Let's say now they've gotten right here. So when the timer stops, I'm going to say stop. I'm going to note the last color they've said. I'm going to draw a line on that color. And now I'm going to write a circle next to it. And remember, here in the circle, we're writing how many times they've gone through the page. They went through it one time, so I'm just going to write a 1 right here. Okay, and so just to, while we're on the topic, what this means is when I'm counting the total number of colors they've gotten correctly, I'm going to add one time all these numbers of colors that are on a page, plus these number of colors here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 colors right here. Total on the page, there's 20 colors in each column times 5 columns. There's 100 items. So this person will have scored 108 on this trial. We'll get to the scoring in just a second, how to count these. But first, we need to administer the last condition. I don't want you to count while you're administering. You'll want to do that at the end. It would be tedious to count while you're going, so you don't need to do that. The final condition is the color word condition. This is the last page. So up to now, the conditions have been what's called congruent. They've been either colors or just black and white words. Now it's colors and words. But they're incongruent. So this is what makes the test a Stroop test, is the colors are mixed, okay? So you see in this first column, the first word is a blue color with the word red, okay? So you're going to put that condition in front of the patient. You're going to read this directions. The directions are on this page. I want you to name the color of the ink the words are printed in, ignoring the word that is printed for each item. For example, point to the first item of the first column. This is the first item. What would you say? And you can see that the color here is blue, so we're looking for them to say blue. Okay? You can see on the administration guide, well, there's two ways this could go. If it is correct, then you just say, good, you will do this page just like the others, starting with the first column and then going on to as many columns as you can. Remember, if you make a mistake, just correct it and go on. Are there any questions? Okay, so that's if the person says blue. Now, pretty much the only other way this would go is the person says the word right here. You can see the word is red. So if the person reads the word, you're going to say, no, that is the word that is spelled there. I want you to name the color of the ink the word is printed in. Now, point to the same item. What would you say to this item? If it's correct, say that's correct. Point to the second item. Just you need to. So they need to get one at least without your prompting. And so you go to the second item and say, what would the response be to this item? Okay. If that's correct, proceed. If it's incorrect, we've advised that administer up to 3 of these kind of teaching trials. If they don't get it after 3 times, the test is not going to be appropriate for them. It would be an incomplete test. Okay, so we're looking for them to say the color at least once in those 3 attempts. If they get that, you're going to start at the beginning, and just like with the others, set your timer, 45 seconds, ready, begin. They should be reading the words, reading the colors, and you're noting the numbers correct. And well, usually on this, this one's a little bit slower because it's a little more challenging when it's that incongruent condition. This can be a little tough for you as an examiner because it's also incongruent for you too. So remember, the best thing is to just focus on the color on this page. As a little hint, if you're finding this very difficult, what you can do is, because we're just focusing on the color, the incongruent condition is actually a juxtaposition of the previous congruent conditions. We can see that in the congruent, the first word was red, and the first color was blue, and put those together, and we get a word red that is written in blue. If for whatever reason it's hard for you to focus on it in the incongruent condition, you can track just using the colors. Blue, red, green matches with what the person should be reading in the incongruent condition. Blue, red, green. Okay, so you'll want to follow along with the colors and then mark where they stop on the incongruent condition, just like the others. So let's say they don't get very far on this, just in this example. Let's say they just get to right here. I'm going to stop and write a 0, just like I've done before. Okay, so now your administration of the Stroop is complete. So at this point with the patient, you'll need to proceed to the next testing, complete testing, whatever is in your overall research protocol, or for a clinical test, stop and go to the next test as well. The thing that needs to be done, and whether this is you, the administrator, doing it, or the supervisors, the data analysts doing it, that's up to you and your research protocol, but someone needs to count it. So the way we can score the protocol is just by counting the number of items completed. Remember, because you were correcting as you were going along, if any item is complete, it's correct. So, for example, on our word condition, the person completed just the first 2 columns and then halfway down the third column. So remember, there's 20 words per column, so I'll count the number of items: 20, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this person got a 48. I will record that number. If I'm recording on the record form where it says word score, I'll record 48, or you can record it in whatever database you're using. I'll then count the color score. Remember, in our example, this person went through the entire page once. That's represented by writing a 1 in that circle. So remember, there's 100 total items per page, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They got 8 words correct there. So that means they got 108. I'll note that in the color score row for raw score. And finally, in our example, the person only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors named correctly in color word. So I'll record 5 in the color word raw score cell. That is what you need to do to score the raw scores. From this point, those scores need to be converted to scaled scores. That's a separate issue. If in a research protocol, perhaps your data analysts are doing that. But that is what you need to do to administer and score the raw scores of a Stroop test. And that concludes the administration procedures. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact us. The contact information will follow. And good luck administering.